Imagine walking into your local grocery store and seeing a gallon of milk priced at $10, a loaf of bread at $8. Sounds unbelievable? Well, welcome to 2025, where these prices are becoming the new norm. In this video, we'll dive deep into the shocking factors driving these sky-high grocery prices and how Americans are responding. Stick around as we break down what's really going on and what you can do to navigate this crisis. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stay informed with our in-depth analyses on global economic developments, because the price of basic goods is just the tip of the iceberg. What's happening to the prices of everyday items? In 2025, the prices of food staples are at an all-time high, leaving consumers with sticker shock every time they visit the grocery store. Milk, once a staple in most American households, now costs $10 a gallon. Bread is nearing $8 a loaf. But how did we get here? It's not just a simple case of inflation. This is a multi-layered crisis caused by multiple factors, including supply chain issues, increased production costs, and market consolidation. Let's start with the supply chain. It's no secret that global supply chains have been under stress for years now. The COVID-19 pandemic was the initial catalyst that exposed weaknesses in the system. Since then, we've seen major disruptions, from labor shortages to delays in shipping and raw material shortages. Transportation costs have skyrocketed, and shipping containers have become scarcer, making it more difficult for retailers to keep their shelves stocked. From the moment food leaves the farm, it goes through a complicated web of distribution channels before it reaches your kitchen. Any disruption along the way results in higher costs, and in the case of milk and bread, that price hike is being passed directly on to consumers. But it doesn't stop there. Climate change has begun to hit food production hard. Extreme weather events such as droughts, floods, and heat waves are decimating crops. Wheat, corn, and dairy are particularly vulnerable, which directly impacts the price of bread, milk, and other staple foods. In 2025, weather patterns are becoming increasingly unpredictable, which means farmers face more significant losses, and those losses are reflected in the prices we pay. In fact, the U.S. experienced one of the worst drought seasons in decades, which severely impacted wheat and corn crops. This, in turn, raised the price of flour and animal feed, pushing bread prices higher. For dairy, extreme heat reduced milk production, and with fewer cows producing less milk, prices naturally shot up. Of course, inflation plays a big role in this. The U.S. economy has been grappling with inflation for the past few years, and food is one of the most affected sectors. The rising costs of energy, fuel, and raw materials feed into higher prices for groceries. At the same time, many industries are facing labor shortages, from farm workers to truck drivers. The cost of labor is increasing, and this means higher wages for workers, but also higher prices for consumers. The cost of production is rising rapidly due to these factors, and even with increased wages, many workers are finding it difficult to meet their basic needs. Companies are not only facing inflationary pressures but also supply chain disruptions and the growing cost of labor, leading to price hikes across the board. One factor that is less talked about but equally important is the consolidation of the food industry. Over the last few decades, we've seen fewer and fewer companies controlling the majority of food production and retail. This has created monopolies in certain sectors, reducing competition and driving up prices. For example, a few giant corporations dominate the dairy and grain markets. When you have a small number of players in control, there's less incentive to keep prices down. These corporations can increase prices, and consumers have fewer choices but to accept them. The result? An imbalance between wages and the cost of living. As prices continue to soar, Americans are being forced to adapt in different ways. A recent survey showed that 88% of shoppers have made changes to their grocery habits to cope with the rising costs. Many are turning to bulk buying, buying generic brands, or cutting down on non-essential items like snacks and beverages. Others are turning to local farmers markets or even growing their own food. In fact, community-supported agriculture programs are on the rise, where consumers buy directly from farmers, cutting out the middleman. This trend is not just about saving money, it's a reaction to the lack of control consumers feel they have over food prices. As food prices climb, political leaders are feeling the heat. In recent months, lawmakers have been under pressure to address the rising cost of living. But the question remains, who is to blame? Is it the current administration's policies on tariffs, trade, and inflation? Or is it the legacy of previous administrations that failed to address the root causes of the problem? Some argue that the government's protectionist policies, such as higher tariffs on imports, are making the situation worse by driving up the cost of foreign goods. Meanwhile, others point to broader issues like the lack of investment in sustainable agriculture and the failure to address climate change before it wreaked havoc on food production. It's not just the US facing this crisis. Many other countries around the world are also grappling with the same issue. In Europe, for example, food inflation has been a major concern, with countries like the UK and France seeing similar price hikes. Global supply chains are intertwined, and a crisis in one part of the world can have ripple effects everywhere. The key takeaway here is that this issue is not isolated, it's a global problem.